Welcome to the Oracle Codex podcast. In this podcast, we are unfolding the divine mysteries and remembrances of the Oracle. What is her story? What was lost that we are now reclaiming? And what is her medicine? Let's unwind and reweave our sacred history. I'm your host, Grace, and I'll be holding space during our journey together. Love you so much, and let's dive in. Well, hello everybody listening and watching on YouTube. It is so joyous to have you here today. And this is going to be an intimate conversation, just me and you. I have no guests today, so we're just going to hang out and flow and connect and kind of unravel what was going on in November and December with the intensity, and I like to call it the dark night of revelation and unfolding. And that really was what I noticed that was going on for me in my life during December and November, was this massive unfolding, massive revelation, and it was quite painful. It was actually incredibly painful. And coming out of that, I just feel so much grace and love and revitalization. Yet at the same time, I know that these cyclings, these experiences going through the dark night of the soul, these seasons of change are so incredibly important, and they really shape us and mold us into the person that we're meant to be, and into the key codes and the medicine that we're meant to hold as healers, as oracles, as medicine people. So this episode is definitely directed more towards women, but if you're a male and you're listening, please hang out with us. I love that you're here. And I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. Also, if you hear like snuffs or sniffling, my dogs are in my room. And I pray that they don't start eating a bone, because then we're going to have some weird noises. But yeah, if you're watching the YouTube video, you will see them in the background. So the first thing I want to dive into is the need for us to empty our cup before refilling with pure source light. So really what this means is that we have to release our identity, release what is kind of keeping us contained inside of an identity or a belief system or a falsity that is actually entrapping and claustrophobic and isolating us from our true and highest will and way with God. And this is a very painful experience to empty out, because we lose touch with the identity and the version of self that we thought we were, which is really causing and creating a lot of security in the body through the ego, right? We feel safe when we have identities, when we have belongings, when we have routines. And these are all very powerful and impactful medicines as well. Routine is a very impactful and powerful medicine for the human. But at the same time, when these idealizations or personas are not true, they can cause a lot more damage than good. So it's really important that we have these seasons and cyclings of releasing out and emptying out our cup and allowing ourselves to be refilled. And for women, I also wanted to say this is a very painful experience, especially because women, our physiology and kind of spiritual anatomy and just kind of the polarization through the masculine form, we like to be inside of a safe container, especially when we are healing. So if we don't have that safe container to unravel, you literally might never unravel. You literally might never feel a full breakdown and breakthrough moment, because it is too scary to lose control or to, lose touch with that safety and security inside of a false masculine container. Right? So the true masculine container would always be allowing us to evolve and unfold. But when we're in kind of overly structured or overly old, I guess you could say, kind of containers that aren't supporting our highest and greatest and new embodiments, we can become mummified, we can become calcified as a woman. So the divine father figure, or this kind of energy through the high heavens of the masculine form, the divine masculine, you might have masculine role models in your life that are able to hold space for you and show you what it is like to be fully held and nourished and loved, to feel that protection of, okay, I can unfold as a woman. Or you might be referencing towards the higher heavens for that divine connectivity with a higher form of masculine integrity and safety. And again, as a woman, you might not feel relevancy to have this, but I know for myself that I deeply do need that warmth, that love, that hand on my back to hold space when I am unraveling and going through a dark night of the soul. That safe reminder of you're going to be okay. And just that container of, the female is really calling in through so much creational whim and will and identity and color and life, that when she is moving through an eruption or a tectonic plate earthquake moment where the world is shifting rapidly, it can feel very chaotic for her. And if she doesn't have the safety of a male or a man or a masculine figure or a container holding her, she might feel that she is susceptible to attack or, losing herself or, being killed. So these, kind of energetics holding space for us are so incredibly important. And I don't think people really realize how important they are. And, you can feel fully validated knowing that if you haven't felt safe enough to unravel during these Chiron seasons or during, November, we had 3 shifts. We went through Libra and then Sagittarius, and then we went into a ficus. So that was a lot of identity shift and a lot of movement in our bodies as the seasons change, as we're asked into new energies. And when the woman is moving through so much and she doesn't have that container, she just doesn't, we won't fall deeply into the seasons. We won't let ourselves rest or have upheaval or have those massive, deep momentum of shift and change. It just won't happen because we don't have space for it. So this is kind of like where I like to nerd out, because I am somebody who is deeply connected to creational codings, and then also to an existential kind of desire to understand life deeper, to understand the ins and outs of why we do things the way we do, why we like them, why we go through these cyclings of death and rebirth. It's very interesting to me. And so I wanted to understand, how do we identify psychologically and biologically to kind of fall into these seasons of doubt and despair and confusion of identity? And the reason that this happens, guys, is because, of course, if you've done inner child healing, you will know that most of your foundational awareness, most of your connectivity to self and to people and to careers happens when you're a very young child. So at the ages of like 3 to 7, we are so incredibly malleable and imprintable towards how we should treat people, how we should treat ourselves, what relationships look like, what career we should have. All of these very important aspects of self are molded from the parents or parental roles around us. And so if we're around people that are, kind of not doing so great, hardly holding on, they're imprinting bad behaviors into us, belief systems that are corruptive, we're going to basically carry those into our adult lives. And the problem within this is that when you get old enough and you have a reality check, it breaks down everything that we thought we knew. And that is an incredibly painful experience for your ego and for your psychology, because you have referenced from this point of identity for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, where in which you knew yourself to be one way. And so when God comes in and asks us to change, or when our guides come in, or when we have that spiritual awakening and everything starts shifting, and we start seeing things and we start feeling things that are different from what we thought we knew. Firstly, we might end up being black sheeped out of the family, which is incredibly painful all in and of itself, but you might be black sheeped out of your own body. So you might start referencing and connecting to things that your body is rejecting, or not even your body, but your ego and your identity is rejecting. And this is a safety mechanism from the body, is to protect us and to make us feel like we know who we are at all times. When in actuality, we are always changing and evolving and becoming greater and greater versions of self, right? But the mind likes to be one way, and the mind thinks that that's the safest way to be. So this is when we have to acknowledge that if the mind is in conductivity and in control of our whole lives, if the ego and our psychology are really and also the subconscious very strongly are controlling the way we perceive things, the way we react, the way we choose, the way we feel, what comes to us, all of that stuff, we need to acknowledge that the mind is really this amazing and incredibly potent power player in our life. And that when we start working with the mind and start noticing our limiting beliefs, subconscious attachments, entity attachments, when the negative forms come in and try to manipulate us into making decisions, and all of the things that, will either sideline us from taking our greatest embodiment back, or kind of keep us muted and castrated inside of this belief system that I am safe the way that I am, and I am safe in the body and the body I am in, and the career I am in, and the relationship I am in, even if it's severely unfulfilling. It's safe, so that's fulfilling. But, those are all lies, and those are all deceptions towards this version of self that, again, doesn't feel safe to shift and to become anew. So this is where reprogramming the mind is really important, and we have to, kind of let ourselves dive into the energy of what that would be like to reprogram the mind, to pay attention to the will that God is providing us. And can we take the leap, the very uncomfortable leap of becoming something new, becoming something better, becoming something different from what we were before? And for women especially, identity is a huge thing in society for us. We want to be liked, we want to be loved. And for a lot of us, it's a scarcity and security player in our lives, feeling liked and loved, feeling like we're pleasing people, like people like us, like we're in people's good books, is a safety mechanism. Because back in the olden days with our grandparents and our great-grandparents and our great-grandmothers, they prescribed safety based on how society was operating that way, if a man liked them or if a man was going to take care of them. So this desire to be liked, especially for females, is really important to acknowledge. And there's this quote that I want to share. It says, "People who are overly concerned with the impression they make, or who feel a core aspect of themselves, such as gender or sexuality, is not being expressed, can struggle acutely with their identity. Reflecting on the discrepancy between one who is and one who wants to be can be a powerful catalyst for change." So one who is and one who wants to be. Okay, so this quote really dives into numerous topics, one of them being sexuality. And for women, this is a huge discussion, feeling liberation, feeling loved. And I'm not saying you should post naked pics online. I actually really disagree with that notion that we should be showing off our bodies in that way. But do what lights you up, what makes you feel truly cherished. Not outwardly seeking validation through another people's, praise upon your body per se, but allowing yourself to feel nourished by your partner, feel nourished by the attraction that comes towards you when you're amplifying your feminine energy in a very holistic and divine, sacred way. So we can struggle with identity, especially as women, feeling like we need to appease, feeling like we can't be sexual, feeling like we can't identify with our true version of self, and feeling like even our gender is just lesser than sometimes. And these are all collective imprisonment thoughts that have been projected into our collective sphere through our grandparents' experience, through society, through the books, through all of the horrible medical treatments that have been done to women. All of our bodies feel lesser than, because why is it such a struggle to be in a female body? Why is it such a struggle to be in this divine, sacred, holy, beautiful, divine body? Because the people in control were confused and not connected to God on how the mechanism of this body works. They were grossed out by it. Women bleeding, how disgusting, they would probably say. These things have all been shamed. And then you also have really amazing examples, of course, from tribes and intelligent people connected to the one true living God. hearing and feeling that this is a very important aspect of the feminine, to have identity through her body, to feel deeply connected to her body, and to not feel any distancing and lesser than anyone else based on her physiology and her biology. She is perfect and loved and can be known because she is a woman. So I just wanted to acknowledge that for all the women around and listening to this, that, you know, you might feel it deeply. Like, who am I? Am I truly doing what I'm meant to be doing? And this is a great big spiral that we are unweaving and unraveling for our ancestors, for our great grandmothers, and for our soul, to remember what it is that a woman is. What is it that a woman is? And actually, this is a huge discrepancy through society right now. Pop culture is demoralizing and demeaning the identity of female and woman. And there is a great documentary called What is a Woman, done by Daily Wire, and I highly encourage you to watch it if you're feeling, you know, uneased by the world that is kind of, you know, dismembering the woman and, you know, letting men choose to partake in female sports, competitions, you know, shows, and just completely overriding what it is that a female is. She is very divine and she is meant to be sacred, and we are reclaiming her and remembering her, but there is a lot of pain through that remembrance of her. So please know that, you know, that dark night of the soul might be intense for you, and that unveiling and revelation and unfolding might be intense for you, but it is divine purpose, and you're holding space for not just yourself, but the whole collective of female. Hi, Soul Fam. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Oracle Codex podcast. I so hope that you are enjoying this episode and conversation with the Oracle. If you would like to stay up to date on the Oracle Codex podcast, I highly encourage you to subscribe on your streaming platform, and as well, you can leave us a big thumbs up, like, or comment down below. If you want to stay up to date with Grace, the host of this podcast, you can find her at creationalcodes.com or on Instagram, Facebook at Grace Crysdale. And without further ado, let's get back into the conversation. Right, so then we have to go through history. We have to go back in time and look at what our ancestors were feeling and look at what the generations before us were feeling when it comes to the female body and woman, and this identity crisis of, am I good enough in this female body? Can I unfold in this female body and feel truly loved and cherished and whole and holy? And so this is a quote from Mary Cullen. She says, historians are still saying the same thing. It is only through knowledge of its history that a society can have knowledge of itself. As a man without memory and self-knowledge is a man adrift, so a society without memory and self-knowledge of itself would be a society adrift. It seems that the search for women's historical identity leads us beyond seeing women as a separate group or caste and raises the fundamental questions about the history of the human race. Progress is being made in formulating new methods of inquiry to recover more and more of the historical experiences of women. New possibilities and potentials keep appearing, but so do new problems. Some historians say and are beginning to question the validity of any concept of women's history, because it seems impossible to find any basis on which to postulate a shared historical experience except in mutual oppression by men. So a lot of, texts and stories and written documents about women are being distorted, and we don't know the true history of women. We don't know what our great-grandparents, great-grandmothers were going through and feeling and what they were receiving from God's source, because through all the medical documents, through all of the, literature and school of thought per se, like psychology, all that stuff, it was distorted and written by men. And not to say that men were, all men were distorting this connectivity to the woman, but it was just the basis of what was going on at that time, is that women are property, women are lesser than. And again, This is why it's so important for us to identify with the fact that we are reclaiming something that we can't even understand at this time. We are reclaiming something that is so divine and profound and horribly painful, that when we lose touch with ourselves, we have to be so graceful. When we feel pain in this female body for being in a female body, we have to be so graceful with ourselves for disidentifying with the pain of this body. You know, this is all divine curation and something that our soul is literally blissful and lit to experience and to unfold within. So I highly encourage all the listeners to connect with their ancestors on their own, in their own way, and to create conductivity to what it is that you can do for your lineage line, for your body, to reclaim the codings, the key codes, the wisdom of that which has already passed, of that which your grandparents held, of that which your DNA holds, of the grail lines that you might be holding, the mastery that you might be holding in your body, the revelations and prophecies that live within your ancestral lines, that live within your DNA. And this is liberation for the self and the soul, is to remember what our ancestors were really going through and to remember and reclaim and heal them, because you might have contracts with them. You might have, some prophecies that are being fulfilled through your body. And of course, this was destined and designed to occur this way. And we would have chosen this family to heal these specific woundings and to heal these specific pain points, because that is our skill. That is what we are destined to do. And I love the quote and the saying that the most painful thing in this lifetime for most people is their greatest medicine. That's why a lot of people who struggle with anxiety and depression will take psychology, or people who have lost a family member to cancer might become a doctor, because people are curious about how to heal the planet. People are curious about how to support and fully remove all of these horrible, torturous experiences. And that really is this beautiful destiny of the human experience, is to take our pains and make them our medicine and our greatest gift to the world. So the next topic is, how do we identify spiritually and where the unraveling begins, letting go of teachers and belief systems. So when we start to identify spiritually, or if we have a spiritual awakening or something crazy happens in our lives, and that's really the breaking moment of something is going on here, something is changing in my life wherein which I can't see the same way I did before. Something in my life has changed wherein which my reality is different than it was yesterday. And this is the beautiful, miraculous experience of heaven on earth, and humans being on earth, and angels being on earth, and starseeds being on earth. And when we start identifying spiritually, we have an identity crisis a lot of times, because what we knew to be true in the past no longer feels true. And that is the dark night of the soul. A lot of people have dark nights of the soul as soon as they wake up out of stasis, out of that numbed out state. But I believe, and I have personally experienced numerous dark nights of the soul, numerous unravelings, numerous self-revelations that go on for months. And the reason that it goes on for months is because when you ask to become your greatest version of self, when you ask and command into your sphere that you are ready for more, ready to become more, ready to heal more, ready to activate more, your body and your spirit and your soul will choose to up level for you, to support you in up leveling. And that will happen on a DNA level, on a cellular level, on a biological level, on a spiritual level, on a psychological level. All of these levels it will occur in. And when we start to change and shift, we lose connectivity to that version of self that we were before, the very human version of self. And I don't like to dishumanize my person. I love my human and I adore her and I love my physical human body, but I also acknowledge that a lot of the time she is in pain, she is confused, she doesn't know what's going on, and my higher self has to take the reins. And so when we have a spiritual awakening, we have a dark night of the soul. But yeah, we can have numerous dark nights of the soul through all seasons of life. Your body will start to change. Your body and your mind will start to change, your DNA will activate, and you won't see the world the same way. And when you ask to get called into higher and higher ways of being, it will get harder and harder in some ways because you're being initiated. So that's where the unraveling begins of this false identification. Maybe our inner child has to come out, our true inner child, before it was conditioned and programmed into whatever belief systems, into whatever false identifications. Our true inner child will come out and it will ask us and query, can I act this way? And we have to go through the psychological process and biological and physiological process of letting the body remember that it is fully okay for us to be the way that our soul wants us to be, not the way that our corruptive and painful, indoctrinated family may have wanted us to be, or the government or the healthcare systems or the schooling systems wanted us to be. What does our soul truly want us to be? So that's where the first revelation happens, right? It's through the dark night of the soul, through the spiritual awakening of there is more than this 3D. There is more above the veil that I am remembering and that I am moving into. And it is exciting to me, and it feels like an earthquake beneath my feet, and it's scary. But at the same time, it's liberating and it's invigorating and it's exhilarating, and it is so fulfilling at a deep soul level. When we start to unravel, it's really important that we take the time to let go of the teachers that are not truly serving us. And in the spiritual community, there's a lot of information out there. And I praise the teachers that have taught me up to this point, and that I am so held in this purification of knowing what is true for me and what is not true for me. But a lot of people get lost in this over-identification of the teachings of one singular teacher, or the teachings of many numerous teachers, and not choosing to self-reference, not choosing to honor what God is pulling through your body, through your vessel. That is your greatest medicine to this world, is not what somebody else is saying and you repeating and rinsing it, but you releasing all your teachers, releasing all your labels, and falling deeply in love with your connectivity to God and your connectivity to yourself. So this is a process I've been going through recently, because I just don't feel interested in what a lot of teachers are saying anymore. I don't feel that deep intrinsic connectivity to it. And the reason that this occurs is because if you're just hearing a very powerful statement from a teacher, but you have not yet unlocked the key codes and the energetic DNA upheaval to fully understand and feel that information in your body, it will essentially be surface level for you. It will essentially only touch a layer of you. It will not be able to touch and fully move you in the ways that it has fully moved them. So when we start to go on our spiritual journey, we need to at some point release the teachers, release the titles, release the absolutity of something being true and something being false, and you not even feeling that, but somebody having told you that, and us having believed it and agreeing with them because, well, they're an influencer, or they're a teacher, and they're well known, and they must be true and honest and good. And of course they are true, honest, and good at a soul level, but there's so much infiltration, there's so much, spiralings and confusion, and people like to share their wisdom. But what about your sacred wisdom? What about your divine gnosis? What about what is sacred and holy to you? Do you even know what you truly like and love? And again, this is a sacred unraveling and a sacred becoming, because you are forgetting and letting go of what is truly not serving you, of what is truly not lighting you up, what is truly not soul-led for you. Can you do this? So as we start to connect to our ancestors, and as we start to release our teachers, all of this miasma will come up, and it will ask us to hold space for it to be held and loved and reclaimed and washed and released back to the one true living God And this is a beautiful, beautiful experience of relinquishing what is false to us, or relinquishing what no longer is serving us. And this can happen on a multidimensional level and also on a physical body level. So through your star lineage lines, through all the past lives you've had on many numerous different planets, and also on this planet, you will have experiences where you need to release a massive amount of density and miasma. And miasma is basically just this gel-like architecture and energetic signature that exists in the body, and it clogs it. So when it clogs your energy levels and it creates and stores density within it, you know that it's a problem. And the key word giving to it is miasma. So miasma, it needs to be cleared out of the body. And if you notice miasma, you need to hold space for it. It might appear as a black or a darker color, or it might have these imprisonment frequencies within it. And we can really just hold space for it to be given back to God and released also out of our ancestors. So yeah, guys, I'm feeling really complete in this conversation. I know it was a short one, but I just want to reaffirm to you that you are so loved and held, and that you are doing massive, amazing work, and that please never deny yourself the truth of the impact that you are making on this planet. Start referencing towards your inner heart, your inner high heart that wants to communicate with you and tell you deep, sacred stories of your family and your soul, and start to have communication and communion with this high, beloved and holy, sacred intelligence that is the one true living God and is your higher self. I hope that this served you, and I will see you next time. Hi Soul Fam, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Oracle Codex podcast. I so hope that you are enjoying this episode and conversation with the Oracle. If you would like to stay up to date on the Oracle Codex podcast, I highly encourage you to subscribe on your streaming platform, and as well you can leave us a big thumbs up, like, or comment down below. If you want to stay up to date with Grace, the host of this podcast, you can find her at creationalcodes.com or on Instagram, Facebook at Grace Crysdale. And without further ado, let's get back into the conversation.